All right, all right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the live stream. We have a very special guest here, Annalena Fox, who I've been on her channel before and, been with her community, but this is the first time that she's been with ours. So she does true sidereal human design. So for those of you who are into human design or have heard about it, we have a true sidereal version. I get asked this a lot, like, is there such a thing? And I'm very happy that Annalena has basically figured this whole thing out, because for me it's complicated. I don't fully understand the whole thing, but it's really great to have someone in the community who does. But thanks so much, Annalena. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
You as well. So can everyone hear us okay? I just want to make sure if Gabriella's on. How's the sound? How's the video? Because this is only our second interview here. But let me know in the chat. So Annalena, I guess we'll start first with, how did you even get into this whole thing? Were you into astrology? Were you into human design before? Were you into astrology before? How did you get started?
Yeah, good question. We're all on the search of something, I think, in our life, to get to know ourselves better, how life works, to figure ourselves out and stuff. And at some point, I think it was almost 5 years ago, I heard about this thing, human design. Astrology wasn't really my main focus. I mean, I have heard astrologies and newspaper, the horoscopes and things like that, but never went really deep into it. And human design, there was just something, that was a visceral feeling in my body. I was so drawn to it and it was fascinating. And just a few things that I learned about my human design, what it was saying, it was so helpful at the time where I was at in my life, and I was so passionate about it quickly because I noticed how I felt different. I felt so seen, I felt so recognized, I felt really empowered to really give myself permission to do things my way rather than trying to do what everybody else is saying, And I'm a person, I can get influenced very easily, Some person is like, no, I should do it this way. And then I'm like all over the place and I'm not really going anywhere. So I knew that that's a sensitivity I have, and human design just always gave me this reminder to anchor myself back into who I am and really feel much more empowered in this, right? Mm-hmm. And at the time, I didn't know too much about tropical, whatever, or true sidereal. And then I also learned about something called the gene keys, which is also very related to human design. Also went deep into it, and I really have been working with both together for a really long time now and working with clients. And it has been such a joy because you know it from your work, right? But when people walk away with a sense of clarity and, they feel more empowered to take the next steps, because oftentimes we tell ourselves story why we can't do something and it holds us back. So yeah, it has always brought me this immense joy. And then it was now almost 1.5 years ago when my clients started to come up with the topic of sidereal. And I'm always open-minded and like to discover new things. And while before that, it never piqued my interest. I had heard my teacher also talk about sidereal, and there's a different version, but I wasn't even interested at the time. But that changed then. And from that point on, of course, there was another visceral feeling in my body, and I went online. I started to research. That's how I find you, and heard about true sidereal astrology. I think it was when I watched your video about this 4 or 5 minutes you have on your YouTube channel and on your website. I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, And I'm a math nerd, have always been, even in school. So it's like, we can get this as accurate as possible, I think. And what's up in the sky for me was like, of course, And I was also a little bit shocked when I finally learned and realized what tropical really is, while I also felt it was a very important foundation for me for many years. And yeah, there was no way back from that point on. So.
Yeah. And did you get, because, it happens a lot going from tropical to sidereal, is we get this sort of like discombobulation feeling, or like, which one is accurate, how are we feeling? So did you, for me it was, it took a while to get used to that new way of looking at the self. I would imagine it's the same for human design as well, or was it more of like a quicker transition for you?
Yeah, so 2 ways, because I had already seen human design in a very different way than what it's being traditionally taught. And what I mean by this is, so we have these 5 types in human design. And I started to really learn and understand how the human design chart and these types come about. I also learned later that we didn't have these types in the very beginning of human design. That was just something added on later to simplify, to make it more accessible and easy for people. But I always noticed that people sometimes put themselves a little bit into a box with these 5 types because, we're almost 9 billion people, and how can we even like even with the 12 or 13 signs in astrology, you know that too, right? We can kind of identify I'm this or that, or I can be this and I'm this. And I started to see, oh, hold on, let's be a little bit more careful. And I started to see more as archetypes and how we can be really a blend of all of these types. Because I
Yeah.
really understood also deeper how the chart looks like. And so I had already dove into this and already started to teach human design in this more expansive way. And when True Sidereal then fully knocked on my door and there was no more way back, and I started to share about it, for me, my personally, it wasn't that hard, to be honest, because I was just, oh, this is just my next evolution. Of course, we are humans, we change, we keep evolving, we're always searching for the truth. And I just feel like this is my next step for what feels like the truth to me. Also, acknowledging that my truth doesn't have to be your truth, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so my audience also was already very open-minded,
Hmm.
right? Because that was the energy I put out there. But I have to be honest, there were a lot of fears come up because human design is very hardcore, traditionally tropical,
Yeah.
and I see there are a lot of over identification and dogmatism and how we can ourselves also box in. And I think with any kind of tool that can happen.
Yeah.
And that's why it has become really my mission to focus on how I see it and helping also people to understand how this human design type, it can very quickly change. Just, when we have in astrology, we have something on a cusp from one side to the other. That can also happen in human design. And I think later on I can share a screen when one gate, so in human design, we have these 64 gates. And depending on where the planets are at when we were born, and also 88 days before we were born, that's the unconscious side we have in human design. This whole chart comes about this human design body graph. And, if we are now shifting calculations because true sidereal moves everything kind of back 30-ish degrees, right? Then there's going to be different gates defined, and the whole human design chart looks very, very different. So the type change, the profile change, and again, for me, it was this like next evolution, but for some people, it can evoke an identity crisis, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think that's also very good actually for our ego, how to realize that we can still so over-identify with things. So even for me, it was like, oh, hold on here. I never want to use this to tell me what I can or cannot do. Any and all of this, including true sidereal astrology, I only want to use it to empower me to confirm something that I know about myself, but I'm not giving myself permission, where I'm really holding back.
Yeah.
More like, yeah, this energy to pull me out of my small self rather than to push it into my small self, right? And I know from our conversations, I think we have a very
Yeah.
similar perspective, yeah.
Yeah. So with astrology, I see it like we're the whole zodiac. And so I would imagine with human design, with all the different gates and everything, would you say we are the whole thing already in our whole form, and we're maybe here to experience certain gates or certain
Yeah.
experiences?
So that's exactly my teacher also when I was studying first, Karen Parker, she always said you have all of the chart. Exactly like you say, we are the whole zodiac. It's the same concept. With that, we are all of these 64 gates. These 64 gates, we also have these 64 gene keys. And also there, that's Richard Rudd. He also says, like, at the end, you're going to realize that it's almost a joke. Like, we are all of these 64 energies, right? And these 64 gates, they go back to the Chinese I Ching. We have 64 hexagrams, right? I mean, it really explains how the universe works. And what I find with the astrology and the human design, the particular chart, if you use tropical or true sidereal, whatever resonates to you, because we know, right? There are people that resonate with tropical, and that's
Hmm.
okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I resonated with my tropical human design for 3.5, 4 years. And I believe there's certain energies of these 64 archetypes that are very important for me at this point in my evolution, right? Where I have a reflection of where can I be my shadow. When I'm aware of it, I can shift it. It's like Carl Jung said, right? We make the unconscious conscious. So all these tools are really great for awareness. So we can see like, oh, wow, I was so operating in my small self and my shadow, and now I see it, and now I can shift it.
Hmm.
And now that I have been evolving and I have worked with this one chart for quite some time, you know, and I wasn't looking for it, I wasn't like, I need to figure something. I was cool with my tropical chart for a long time. But then it was so strong, this pull by life, God, universe, that I was like, okay, I'm gonna lean into it. Let me be curious. And then in this new version of my chart, there was still also a lot of similarities that I could see, but there was this other part of me that wanted to be more expressed in some way. And I have to say, I felt even more seen. It felt even more deeply true to who I am. And even with how the calculations are being refined and everything, and we're
Yeah.
working together with this with the human design currently. We have been experimenting with it, and what we have been talking about right now feels even more
Yeah.
accurate to people. So
Yeah.
we're experimenting with it right now. We're no longer seeing it as this, oh, this is who you are. There's nothing you can do about it. It's more
Yeah.
like, hey, like here, like different options of your existence and see what you feel most drawn to. And it's incredibly liberating for people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the same response I get from, obviously from sidereal astrology, but same from your community, people who message me and who've looked at their true sidereal human design chart. And it's the same experience. They feel very confirmed in it. They feel like you said, they've been seen. It
Yeah.
seems to be doing the exact same thing. But I love what you're saying about being more flexible with it too, because like with true sidereal as well, it's like we haven't defined the bound. There is no real line between the constellations. It's not like you can go
Yeah.
outside and say this is exactly where the zodiac starts or this is exactly where Aquarius starts and stuff. And so that's of course the fluidity of life in the sense that with astrology for me, it's easier to see that it's all like a spectrum. And it's like you're going
Hmm.
from one sign to the next or one state of consciousness to the next. And so I would wonder then, because you're able to see obviously the human design on a much deeper level, like with your charts, I've seen it. Like for me, it's like cryptic. I don't, and
Yeah.
like I have the ability to, I can't, it's like very difficult.
Yeah.
But I would imagine when you start to go in and start to dissect it, like the way you do, looking at the specific gates and all those like, was the shadow self, conscious self, this part and all that, you're able to really then start to get more refined and understand it, on that more fundamental level than just knowing like your main type, as a generator or whatever, right? And so
Yeah,
it gives you more
exactly.
nuance to it.
Yeah, much more nuance. And because everybody's so unique, and human design is actually called the science of differentiation, right?
Mm.
And so it's so much more than this type. And I have found through really trusting my intuition that when I let go of all the labels, of what we read mainly in the books, like you're this type, you're this, and this is how you should feel and behave and stuff like that, right? Or how to
Mm.
live life. Um, it started to become much more powerful because I really started to see the unique essence of a human being. And then depending on, you know, and I don't know, we call it a reading, but for me, it's much more of call it a coaching or mentor guide session where I'm asking questions first. I'm not here just to throw information at you of what I'm seeing in your chart. Like, I'm not here predicting anything, right? I want to hear where are you at, where you may be stuck, what is something that you desire, and then I intuitively go into your chart and extract some of these energies that I feel I very much have to do with, getting the person out of whatever current limitations we have put on ourselves, right?
Yeah. And
So,
is human design like getting confirmation on the self or the life experiences? What is that main confirmation that they're getting, would you say?
There is a lot of confirmation, especially about their zone of genius, right? Like what are they really good at, what they're here
Hmm.
for to creatively express themselves in the world, and also how they also are as a human in terms of interacting with other people, if they're more highly sensitive, like what's normal for you, or
Hmm.
how are you designed to make decisions? Because we live in a world where we think like just decide and go do it, right? We're often being pushed into that, and then we think there's something wrong with us. And so many have a much slower decision-making process.
Yeah.
And that's something that human design can really, really help us with. And also to see, especially for me as a guide and mentor, because I've seen so many charts, I've worked with so many clients that I have really seen like how different we are,
Yeah.
and there's no right or wrong. There is no like, oh, there's something wrong with you because you need a lot of time to make decisions. No, not at all. And there's another person, it may come really easy to them to make quick decisions, and there's always something else for us to learn and integrate. And at the end of the day, it's also incredibly powerful for compassion, self-compassion. So we stop judging ourselves, we stop thinking I need to be fixed, so there's something wrong with me. But you can just be, okay, I can be myself. It's okay,
Right. And
feeling.
that's, yeah.
And also have more compassion for others because I know for myself, look, I'm a human. I do it still all the time. More aware of it now. We keep judging, no? All the time. Like, why is this person? And human design always reminds me, like, hey, this is just totally normal for somebody else.
Yeah. Because there's so many, like the types, let's say, because, this is what I'm aware of, like the generator, these kinds of types. They're so different from one another. I mean, in a way, like astrology is like you're trying to be like the best version of that sign. But one thing about human design that really stood out to me is it's like very detailed and very clear. Like, hey, this is how you gain energy. This is what you need. This is how you do this and that, like in terms of when you're feeling your best. And you're right. Like, I would say probably the biggest takeaway from it was like, we have all these societal beliefs. Like, you should be like this. You should be achieving all the time. You should be generating all the time. You should be receiving. You should, and it's all these like certain ways of going about life. But human design is very, I think, clear and very specific in terms of how do you gain energy, how do you experience life, and what's the best. What I would describe it as like, what's the best way for you to really just fundamentally live your life, and it be okay, and not feel like you need to change or you're doing it wrong or something. Especially from the West, where there's a lot of bias in terms of we should all be like, I don't know, in a general sense, extroverts and active all the time, know who we are and what we want, and that's the ideal, right? But in like human design is like equally important is like those receiver types, or the ones that are like there to kind of like be more inspiring or be more working with others and like this kind of a thing, which I think really helped. But that's just on that type level. I'm sure it's even deeper when you go into the gates and all that. All right.
Yeah, definitely. It's really in the depth of the chart, and it's very much about using our energy in the most efficient way so that we can really be the creator that we were born to. Right? We are all here to create in some way or form, and it looks different. If we are all trying to do the same, like if everyone is trying to be an astrologer, like it's gonna be difficult. And also what you say, for example, that human design helped me a lot with, and I think we hear it from other people in different ways that are not using any of these tools. But like you say, when you see a human design chart, it's kind of like very complicated for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the same, and I know I have been studying with you because I wanted to learn the true sidereal more, but I have the same when I do astrology charts and readings. I'm like, this is complicated for me. And human design is like, it feels easy, it feels effortless, like, like don't even have to prepare much. And human design has really taught me that that's what we're meant to be doing. This comes easy to you for a reason so that you can put this out into the world. Versus for me, it's almost like, we can probably really work hard and make it happen and push and force, but I feel like it's so hard because life is letting me know, like, I'm trying to redirect you because I made it easy here for you for a reason. And that has been really a game changer for me. And that's what I help a lot of my clients with because we often still have this conditioning like, you have to work hard and you have to push through. And yes, there are times. So, for example, when I'm in my fears, when I'm stuck in my fears because I'm scared of how amazing life could be, yeah, then it's for me to push through and really face those fears. But
Mm.
not when it's something that I'm mediocre at and I'm trying to be in my zone of genius.
Yeah.
Like my zone of genius will clearly tell me like, hey, it's easy, it's effortless, and you really love it. It's those
Yeah.
thing where you're like, I just love it. And I'm sure you could talk about astrology all day long. I'm
Yeah.
sure we all need breaks, but it's just this joy. Or when I sit down with a person, I look at the chart. When I have readings, I don't know where time is going. Like it goes like that,
Yeah.
and that's always for me like, okay, I'm meant to be doing this.
Yeah.
And especially let me tell you, since this whole truth idea came to me, and it's still a little bit of a challenge because I sometimes think, oh, it would be so much easier if I would just do the tropical because everything is fixed and the chart cannot change. And I'm in this kind of mess right now because it's shifting and changing and currently still in the process of coming up with a standard for the calculations of the human design. But then I was like, well, I think I can handle it apparently because I was put here it has been coming to me left and right. And we did the summit, the True Sidereal.
Yeah.
I got so much nice feedback. People kept asking for more. I keep having people reach out to me since I started to talk about True Sidereal and human design and thanking me left and right from changing their life, from, yeah, and having the courage to speak about it because
Yeah.
it's a little bit ruffling some feathers, right?
For sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So,
it would be easier to just do the tropical thing.
yeah, but it would be easier in terms of like, oh, that's what's most popular still. That's what most people are drawn to. That's what sells the most. But my energy turns off.
Yeah.
When I get into just the old traditional way of teaching it, but it's not aligned with my truth. Like I get lethargic, I get tired, I get like, you know. So
Yep. Got to be a
it's a little bit of
pioneer.
a confused.
That's what you're here to do. And you're very good at it.
So,
And the things you've done with the math of it too is like way over my head. So, I have people messaging me about how to, obviously I know how to convert like the INAMSA or the SVG as you call it, but I have no idea like how you're going in there and technically changing the
mhm.
gates and all this stuff. Do you,
uh, yeah.
do you want to show
Mhm.
everyone what one of these look like?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull up my genetic matrix. That's the software I have been using for years now. So this is the transit basically right now. So right now the sun is in gate 19. And to make it a little bit more easy to see, I'm gonna actually pull up now in just a second the astrology behind. But basically, the sun is in gate 19, the earth is in gate 33, the north node, south node. I think we all know this from astrology. And then we also have the unconscious side. So if somebody were to be born right now, their human design chart would look like this. And this is where the planets were about 88 days before. That's what we call the unconscious side, right?
Hmm.
And this is then how this whole human design chart comes about.
So is
And
this
when we
with,
have,
mhm.
yeah, go
Is
ahead.
this with True Sidereal? Like it's already automatically,
Yeah, yeah, no, I have made a configuration in the system to take into account the SVP
wow.
that we have for that. So it's not, even though it says tropical, like here is where you see
Mm.
so there's an adjustment you can make. And what's interesting in human design, so we see these 9 centers, right? And they're either white or colored in. When it's
Mm.
colored in, like here, we call it defined. And it's defined because two gates come together and they build a channel. So here in
Mm.
this chart, there's only one channel, right? The 1949, for example. And this is why these two centers are defined. But just to show you one other example, this is my chart. So here, this center is defined, this center is defined because there's a channel, there's a long line, right, that connects. And then also here is connected. it's also a channel. And up here, these two centers are defined because there's a full channel. And this is how, at the end of the day, these types come about, depending on what centers are defined and things like that, right? Now,
And are
where it gets
these,
really,
oh, sorry,
yeah,
are these the gates, like 64 linking with
yeah,
47? Okay.
yes.
And
So
that's the I
these
Ching
are,
wheel.
yeah, I'm going to show that to you now. So exactly, these are the 64 gates. And some centers, like the head center, for example, that's like the crown chakra, only has 3 gates. The ajna has 6. The throat center, I think, has 11. So they're all vary, but it's a total of these 64 gates.
So
And
this is basically like where each I Ching gate would fit corresponding to the body and how they would be linked. I mean, because I can see a human there and like the heart and everything. Like, is it that like gates 1, 7, 13, etc. are all like heart-centered gates or something?
yeah, so these gates here, so this is what we call it's called the identity center. It's a derivation of the heart chakra for sure, but these are all related to the love of the self, the love of the body, connections to spirit. It has a
Okay.
lot to do with those themes. Yeah, these all have communication themes, right?
Okay.
The throat chakra.
So it's like a visual
Yeah,
representation of how those gates link up and what they're
yeah,
associated with and grouped together with.
yeah.
Okay.
And so if we're now, I'm gonna go just back. This is the current transit, right, today. So connecting this now to the sky, and this is now here, so true sidereal. So right now the sun is in Aquarius, right, and true sidereal. So this gate 19, right now the sun is in that gate 19, right? And eventually, we still have a little bit to go. Eventually, we'll shift into Pisces and gate 13 later, right? As we go over the next few weeks. So, and here you can see, so basically in tropical, it would be, there's a shift in the sky, basically, right? And right now we're in gate 19, but tropical would say that, oh, we're already in, I think would be already in gate 55 or 37. Like there would be this gap, right? And this is why this whole chart here would look different, because different gates would be defined. And with true sidereal, it just shifts back in the sky, right? With the signs. And hence different gates will be, we call it activated, because the sun is in that gate here.
Right.
It's not already in that gate, right? Or
Like the
Mercury,
signs.
yeah, Mercury is in Pisces right now. But that's why almost on average, right, because we have different sizes of the constellations in true sidereal, like almost every a gate that's activated like shifts almost into one other sign,
Okay.
right? And then it's a different gate, and then it's in a different center, it's a different channel. Like the whole chart looks completely different
So,
because of that.
so does it always, so even in mains or even in tropical human design, does gate 25 start Aries like that?
Yeah, so let me show you, if you want another overview, what we can look at that. So
Because
maybe
we're,
if I do this,
because
I can show it to you.
because we're determining those gates based on the Ayanamsa or the SVG, where it starts,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, so let me show you how it would look like. So this is now the tropical version, right? And then here, if I go to so now we have the, yeah, so it's very I mean, the 25 here is, yeah, still part in Pisces, and then here in Aries, because yeah, here we have the evenly 30 degrees,
Right.
right? With all the signs. And here we have shifted the sky to how it looks in how the constellations are different,
Right. Because
right?
Aries is
So
shrunk.
now,
Yeah.
yeah, so here it is there, but I mean, things have shifted because we have now different sizes in the constellations. And this is obviously, yeah, based on the work that you have done and the best we can do at this point with these softwares. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still hoping that one day we have a standard and where we can have an app that just has everything for true sidereal with human design, right? Because we're still like manually making these calculations. Like what I can tell you is that the calculations that we have been running with the true sidereal values, they seem much more accurate for people. There is
Yeah.
a deeper level of resonance,
So
you know?
curious why we wouldn't start the 25 like right at 0 degrees Aries. Or no, let me put it this way. So I wonder why half of 25 isn't in Pisces then, like in this system, like it is in tropical, right? Because wouldn't we want to? I guess that's my
Mm.
question is like, are we, how, what was the overlay between them? Like, why did we decide to put 25 right at the beginning of Aries like that? Or is that just how it lines
So,
up?
so this is so Ra, right? Ra Uruhu was the person that, I mean, like, I think anything in history, like, at some point, some knowledge was received from
Yeah.
spirit, and this is how it was. So, this is how, according to what Ra, I mean, right now I'm in the, so according to Ra, so here and actually, according to Ra, the new year actually starts with gate 41, which is kind of like January 22nd-ish in tropical, right? So around this time here. And that's where, according to what he downloaded and the knowledge that he received, where the gates are in the sky. So now with True Sidereal, we're keeping the overall of the 360-degree and where the gates are. We keep that,
Mm.
but it's now shifted with the signs, right? Just like we
Yeah.
have that in True Sidereal where it's shifting back. And this is why now the gates are still exactly where they were before. It's just that the outer circle with the signs and everything has shifted.
Has moved.
And since we are like, okay, so for example, in tropical, I was born under gate 13, um, but in the True Sidereal, I was really in gate 38 because there is this like shift, like we have it in tropical, right? Like
Yeah.
you see in the sky, in the astrology chart, like the chart itself looks very similar. It's just this shifted,
Right.
right? It's shifted to where I feel like tropical is moving too fast.
Okay. Yeah. Because
So
it's very interesting that, I'm sorry, who was the founder? What was his name?
Ra
Ra.
Uruhu. Yeah, or Ra, just Ra.
So I'm curious why Ra started 25, which would usually be the beginning of the zodiac, at the end of Pisces. At the end of Pisces, like that. Because yours makes sense. I mean, this one, I mean, makes sense. The true sidereal. It's got the
Hmm.
Aries starting right where it should, like at the 90-degree beginning,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
25, which
Yeah, I
starts
mean,
there
look, I
too.
don't know.
But
I think that's what you mean. And yeah,
yeah,
maybe they're the way that's maybe also why tropical is a little bit off, and it has been we have been trying to fit it in, right? And now, obviously, this is also how genetic matrix is presenting this. But yeah, he gets
does
exactly
that make sense? Like,
the zero degree. Yeah.
you start there where
I
the
agree.
eastern
Yeah.
horizon would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's why true sidereal makes
Maybe
more
he
sense.
was trying to adjust for sidereal there a little bit because it's going further into Pisces, right? So that's usually what you would do.
Yeah. 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 And look, everything is like, what's right or wrong? We don't know. It's about, okay, we come up with these new ways, like you came up with the true sidereal, right? And like now it's okay, does this resonate with me? Does this feel right?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do with this? And that's why also, which I like a lot, human design is an experiment, right? That's how it's being called. And oftentimes people forget it, where they're like, oh no, but I'm this kid, and I'm oh no, but I'm this, and now this is wrong. Like, no, hold on. Like, just see how does it feel? Like, does it feel good? Does it feel like it's validating you? Does
Yeah.
this confirm something? If it
Yeah.
throws you off, just leave it,
Yeah. Exactly.
right?
That's exactly what I say to my
And
clients too. Yeah.
yeah, and then really, and also in tropical or true sidereal, like we look at our birth chart, and then we can look at our the yearly charts, right? We can look at the progression charts and everything, the return charts. In human design, we also have the Saturn return, the Uranus
Mm.
opposition, like, and for all of these, you're going to look at different gates that are activated in the sky. And I really feel over time, we are here to learn all of these 64 archetypes in some way, all these 64 gates. Like you say, we are all of the zodiac, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, where does life want you to put your attention to at this time?
Yeah.
Right? So if it's like, again, in my going back here in my, this is now a true sidereal chart, the transit right now. So for this person, there would be something particular with, we have this incarnation cross, the sun and the earth gates. There's usually like a very strong theme here. They may be extra relevant for those people, right? And then over time, it changes if they start to resonate with a different chart over time.
Yeah.
And in my audience right now, I have come to notice that more and more people want true sidereal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
There
been,
was also a time where people want tropical and sidereal, and I look actually at both charts and I bring out similarities and changes that these two energies kind of present itself. And it has been very powerful for people.
yeah.
So,
I'm curious, if you go back to the wheel,
yeah.
because the gates change to different signs, have you noticed that, like, based on the gate description, like, for example, I don't know, like, what would be one that would normally be something different? Like 49 would normally be Aquarius, is that right?
Yeah, that's actually a very good example because I felt that the true sidereal are more accurate. So let's look at this. So 49 is actually an Aquarius.
Okay. So what is
And it
49?
comes,
Yeah.
so 49 is, it comes off, you don't see this here because it's not activated. 49 comes off the emotional solar plexus. So it has to do with emotions, right? When we feel really high and we feel really low. It is also, I have to say, it has to do with revolution, which we could say is Aquarian, but it's more about how are we responding when we get triggered, right? Are we responding from a place of love and actually owning why we get triggered, or do we lash out on people, right, and react? And then it can really create a lot of unpleasant things in relationships, right? It's a very strong relationship energy. And if you ask me, all these emotional gates, they're more Pisces to me because Pisces is more of a, you know,
Emotional. Yeah.
yeah, very emotional. And when I look at the true sidereal, so the first full gate that is in this emotional solar plexus center, and it's here fully in Pisces, no longer in Aquarius, right?
It makes total sense. Yeah.
So with that, when I saw that, and again, it's not to prove one is right or wrong, but I tell you, so the 49, the 30, the 55, the 22, and the 36, they're all emotional solar plexus gate. They're all emotional energy. And that's something that I just found, yeah, quite interesting.
So it's
Because
matching.
for
It's
me,
matching up better with the gates.
I feel like definitely it's matching up better.
That's what it
Yes.
sounds like. Yeah. Look at Ophiuchus with number 1. What's number 1?
So, yeah, so this is an interesting one where I have heard people say, so gate number 1 is the creative. It's about your most authentic creative expression. And it comes from this G center, right? Which is that's who you are. It's a deeply vulnerable energy. It's also though said to be the most masculine energy, even though Ophiuchus, I think we also connect a lot with the feminine, but the programming partner, exactly on the opposite, which is the 2, which is called the receptive. It's about allowing and receiving. That is the counter energy of this, right? We call this in the gene keys, we call this programming partners. It's like an opposition in astrology,
Yeah.
right?
So that's where Orion
So,
is. It makes total sense.
and in the I Ching, I have also learned that, so we have these 2 extremes, the feminine and the masculine, but it's a spectrum, right? And at some point I enter through immersing myself into the masculine. That's only how I access the feminine, right? They dance together. So they're never like, yeah, really, really away from each other. And we see the gate 1, I see it a lot. Yeah, when people, yeah, creative expression, artists. I think we're all artists at the end of the day.
But that's
So,
like Ophiuchus, right? In the sense that, like, you're getting closer to the galactic center. Because I want to ask about 43 next, because that's where the
Mm-hmm.
center of the galaxy is, right? 43. And
Mm-hmm.
usually what we see when a planet starts to approach the galactic center, there is actually strong like fire in the sense of like, we're going around, we're like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I am, this is who I want, maybe like first house kind of energy. I don't know if it's linked like that, but that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then once we get to the galactic center, there's the death and the rebirth, right? It's like you've kind of maxed out in the ego sense. And then when you get to the galactic center, it's time for that death, ego death, and rebirth out the other side. Does 43 deal with transformation?
Yeah, so 43, I mean, every gate for me has to do with transmission. So 43, so this gate comes off here, this ajna center. It's part of what we call the knowing circuitry, which is that you really connect. So when you can stop trying to figure things out, right? When you're trying, not using the mind to come up with solutions and everything, when you allow yourself to be more in a state of waiting and patience and everything, at some point you have this epiphanies, you have this sense of deep clarity that comes to you. It's like this inner knowing. And that's what this energy is a lot about. It's also then connected with simplicity because we often can make things way too complex. And when we can channel this energy of the 43, it's like where we just share these insights. We don't even know where they're coming from, but it's just this like inner knowing. So we're really tapping into the field of the unknown, right? And the quantum field where we're like, and then it's a little bit like Einstein energy where we're like shifting people's perspectives and like the way we think and the way we see the world because it's a really like genius coming through when we allow
Wow.
it, when we just speak from it's literally for me like because out of these energies that go straight then here through the middle of this body graph, it has to do with inner knowing. Like we don't know how we know or why we know, but we just know. Like even with this true sidereal, like sometimes I can't explain it. I mean, yeah, we have some like, well, it's up in the sky and it's more accurate calculations to the best of the knowledge we have today. But at the end of the day, I'm always going back to like, I just know, and that's all, like.
Yeah. But that's exactly what that part of the sky is because you go into Sagittarius, right? So this is, you can see, I think that 43 is actually a little bit into Sag, which is very interesting because, I mean, that's exactly what happens because after you go
Yeah,
through
it is. Yes.
after you go into that void or you go into, what did you call it there? With Einstein, it's like what did you say, not the vortex,
Yeah, I mean, it's you connect to the quantum
the
field
quantum
of the
field.
unknown,
Yeah.
like where there's all these answers that we don't have them yet. But when we can
Yeah.
let go of the mind trying to figure things out, the mind trying to find all these answers, which often comes through walking in nature, like doing what lights us up and pleasure and all of this. And all of a sudden we have these like light bulb moments or these like, oh my gosh. And then when we share it at the right time with the right people, it's like it's expanding consciousness. It's
Yeah.
expanding the way we think and see the world. It's like
And
creating
that's
new life.
Sagittarius. That's exactly
Yeah.
Sagittarius. Yeah, that's so cool. So this is actually helping me understand more about the constellations too. So I guess we do it both ways.
Yeah.
We can understand the I Ching better by comparing it to the astrology using this wheel. But we can also do it the other way, understand astrology better by understanding the I Ching or
Yeah.
reading about the I Ching. That's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's cool that you asked because it would be a cool exercise to go through all of the
Yeah.
gates, match it up with the signs because yeah, and again, there's everybody has like different interpretations, right? And that's why I shared with you a little bit of my unique view of the gate one because I have heard people say like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be the feminine, but this is the most masculine, so it must be wrong, right? But when we go
Right.
really deeper, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Right. Maybe it's more about that empowerment or something that a fucus is about, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because we humans tend to really get very quickly into this black or white thinking. And that's I think one of the gifts that I have that I mean I can fall into myself, but I can quickly catch it and like, well, it depends. It's always the spectrum. It's always like you can be
Yeah.
here or there. And the one extreme leads already in the other extreme. So it's never like
Right.
they saw that it's only this end, and how
Yeah.
is the one feeding into the other? Because the feminine and the masculine, they can only coexist.
Yeah.
It's not like
So two
separate
sides of
anywhere.
the same coin. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So let's take some questions. I'm really curious to see what the
Yeah.
chat is saying here. Um,
Yeah.
do you guys have any questions for Annalena before we wrap up here? Oh, wow. That's a lot of comments. All right. So let's go on here. So Pamela says, I'm so grateful to have bumped into HD Gene Keys 22 plus years ago and to have a reading from you, Athen, a couple years ago. Both are valuable and illuminating to me. Yeah, very happy to hear that. And that's the beauty of now combining these two. So is there like a report or something? So what would be the process, Annalena, if someone wanted to, explore this more? Do you offer, I know you do sessions like you were saying with coaching, but is there like
Yeah.
reports or anything?
Yeah. So I don't have a report like you do, right? Especially with the true sidereal, since we're still working on it. But right now I offer one-on-one sessions, like a human design reading. That's something people can reach out to me for.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
cool.
probably the easiest, like on my Instagram, to find me.
Through
Hmm.
Instagram. Okay, so I've got the link here. So you're doing this certification, and that's the big thing you're working on now, right? So
Yeah, that's something for those that are interested to learn more yourself about human design and also integrate the true sidereal with that, and really get this knowledge more out into the world. So I'm launching a certification that starts March 11. I think doors are going to be open until the 18. If that's something that speaks to you, Athen is going to share the link with that.
yeah,
Yeah, but I'm
so I
really
just
sharing
posted it.
all my wisdom I've gained over the last like 7 years, also from coaching, because the main focus here is to provide transformation to people, to really empower them so they can step more into their true calling, their genius. And I think the more of us do it, we can really raise consciousness with that.
Oh, okay. Oh, thanks, Gabrielle. So Gabrielle, the moderator here, she already sent those links out. So we've got your Instagram link in there, which is awesome. So that's the best way to reach you for coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then Gabrielle also has Annalena's website there where you can find those other things. All right, really cool. So let me see if there's any other questions here. Can you explain the types? I don't know. So this is Holly. Great to hear from you, Holly.
Yeah.
Can you explain the types? I don't know how to read my chart. I see my type is projector. So I don't know if you want to go into all of
Okay.
them, but
Yeah, to go onto all of them is a little bit much. But I can talk a little bit about the projector type, if that's the chart right now that you feel drawn to. So the projector usually has a really big gift to guide other people, has a really big gift to see what needs to be corrected and realigned. And it's always really important that you allow people to come to you, right? You want to really share what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what you're up to. Oftentimes we fall very quickly into like giving advice to people too quickly, right? And telling them what they should do or how they could do things better. And then it's more repetitive. So really let them come to you. Like, know that as you recognize your own magic, right? As you know the gifts and talents that you have, others will also start to see them, and the right people will approach you. The other thing, oftentimes with projectors, so we live in a world where we have been exposed to a lot of hustle and grind mentality. I think Ethan and I were talking about it too, right? We're like, we have to work hard, we have to make things happen. And as a projector, one of the centers in your chart, which is the second from the top, from the bottom, is the sacral center, and that is always undefined or white in your chart. And what this simply means is that you're here to become really wise about your energy and really listening to what I was also talking about earlier, like when you feel like you don't have energy for something, like don't push through it, don't force yourself into it. And you may have times where your energy is extremely amplified and you feel like on fire and you can do all these things. And in 1, 2 days, you get this whole project done, and really go with that. And I know that can sometimes feel like addictive and we want to stay at that level of energy all the time. But then after that, it may almost feel like a balloon popped and you feel a little bit like, oh, now I need to rest, I need to recover, I need to recharge. And it may be for a few days, sometimes it may be like for a whole week, so that you can really allow yourself to listen to your body, to what your unique rhythm of energy is, which is most likely very different from what society has put onto us. So that's oftentimes something that especially projectors, yeah, like to work on a lot. So see if that resonates with you, what I just said. But also there's so much more, like every single chart has so much more depth and so much more nuances, right? Because everything that I'm saying right now is just based on some ideas about the type. But again, you're
Yeah.
unique, and there's so much more to that.
And so many different combinations because, like, with all those
Yeah,
things you showed, it's
yeah.
like I mean, I'm sure you can have two charts that are the same, but that would be extremely rare. Same as like in astrology, all those combinations. You ever seen two
Yeah, I mean, when
the
people
same?
are born at the same time, they obviously have the same chart, but we still also have conditioning, right? We grew up in different
Yeah.
environments. So
Yeah.
that's why always an actual conversation needs to happen between the guide and the person receiving the session,
Right. But
right?
your point is that there's so many different types of projectors, right? And so while it's
Yeah.
generally a projector is kind of a projector generally, they're all going to still have very unique ways of going about it through human design.
Hmm.
Is that a proper way to say
Yeah, I
that?
mean, look, everybody, the projector is just an archetype. There are some elements that human design kind of summarizes as some unique qualities, but then again, the unique experience is going to be, yeah, very refined and very, very different for everyone, right? It depends also so much on our conditioning, how we have been holding ourselves back, or if you're more on your empowered self already. So
Yeah.
that's why it's always so much more powerful when I actually ask a person some questions and then they tell me where they're at and what they're really looking for in terms of clarity and next steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I say with astrology too. It's like this isn't meant to predict who you are as a person. This is simply the blueprint you've been handed. Whether you've developed it, you know, in the way that you've chosen, you can choose to develop it in any way you want, just like the weather. If it's raining outside, we might give some so-called like suggestions in the sense that it's probably good to do certain things in the rain if it's raining. But there's you can do anything in the rain, and that's I think the
Mm.
same for the chart. It's like you can express that however you want. Most important thing I think is recognizing, I think it's your needs, your strengths, your weaknesses, generally speaking, so that you can live a more fulfilling and centered life. That's more in alignment with your needs as a soul, right? Would you
Hmm.
say
Hmm.
from
Yeah.
HD as well? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because it highlights certain aspects that we often have been neglecting or we have been pushing through, and then really helps us to have that awareness and yeah, bring us in more alignment,
So it even
right?
shows where we maybe have our blind spots and stuff
Yeah.
as well.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, what I was talking about, the compassion, right? Where we have, so for me, this was really big because I always was a kid growing up, had a lot of fears, and I thought there was something wrong with that. So I was so resisting it. And when we resist something, it persists, right? And with human design, I started to see that some of these fears, like I'm not the only one that has those, you know? It was really this big like moment of relief and what it actually means to be human and let it be okay and no longer let these fears hold me back, but rather embrace it, be honest about it, and but then move beyond it and
Yeah.
take action in what my heart, what my body is asking me to do.
Mm.
And yeah, the fears may still hold you back, but I feel like they keep losing its grip on you the more you
Mm.
get to know yourself and what's normal for you, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like all the conditioning and false beliefs and all this garbage we picked up along the way that's not even ours,
Yeah.
right? These thoughts, these
Yeah.
perspectives are not even ours, right? If they're not coming from that
Mhm.
place.
Yeah.
All right, so just one more question here. I lost it. Where is it here? Oh, okay. So it's just kind of a general question. Is it all based off the birth date like astrology? So just to kind of expand upon that, though, because I think, obviously, so yeah, the answer to that is yes. Is human design, it's not just astrology, though, right? Because it's incorporating the I Ching. Are there other
Yes.
things in there too?
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's what I love about it so much. It's a synthesis of Western, Eastern astrology. You find elements of quantum physics. the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, Judaic Kabbalah, and also the Hindu chakra system. So all these elements flow into the human design body graph, which I find fascinating because it's like all these different like theories we have, right, or concepts that can be helpful, and they're just now in one, and they don't contradict any of it, right? And I have found actually, I've also studied Kabbalah a little bit more, and a lot of the wisdom that I have found there, I see it how it overlaps, and it keeps confirming itself. We just say it in different ways, and I think that this is all like universal wisdom that through these different tools and systems we have, if it's astrology, now human design, or some people may only do the I Ching or only do Kabbalah, they find their access to that because it resonates, right? Like for me, I can really tell you, like I have learned so many or had so many light bulb moments through human design that I had heard from other people through other things, also in the self-development world, right? But they clicked for me with human design. That's my to-go tool.
Yeah.
And I have a very hard time like understanding it, for example, only with astrology, right? But when it's with human design, here I, Annalena, get it. And that's different for all of us.
Right.
And I think human design is luckily speaking to a lot of people. It gives them that understanding that other ways of explaining probably the same essence of an energy wouldn't land, right?
Yeah. It's almost like you're looking at the self from different perspectives. It really doesn't matter what perspective you're looking at it from. You're still looking at the self there, but one of those perspectives is going to speak more to you or resonate more with you, or just like give you what you need at that time, like you were saying too earlier. But at the end of the day, all these tools are really just pointing towards the same thing, aren't they? I mean, and they're all based on the same thing when you really dive deep into them, you know. Like for me, I just know like tarot and numerology and astrology are all super linked. I haven't looked into the I Ching that much, but like you're saying, it is obviously linked too. So they're all coming from that same place, which is just the quest of, I guess, self-discovery and knowledge, you know. And we just figured out different tools to kind of arrive at the same thing, you know.
Exactly. And, you know, there are going to be people in the world that have the same level of compassion for themselves or the same understanding how the universe works, and they have never even looked at human design, you know. It's not like, oh, only if you have human design you can awaken, or whatever you want to say, or the same with astrology. Like, we are so many different people on this planet. Some people, they don't connect with spirituality at all, and that's okay. We also need to let that be okay. There are other people that absolutely love astrology. That's how they thrive. That's what they love. There are other people that love human design, and that's, oh my God, that's the thing for them. And there will be other people that say, this is bad and this is wrong, and for everything, right? We have, and that's what we have to come at. It's like, we need to be okay that what my truth is and your truth is can be different. What resonates with one person may not resonate with another person, but can we just be okay with letting people be with whatever works for them and be their own truth, right? And let that be coexisting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think that's really like, hey, if this helps you to feel more empowered, to trust yourself more, to be more confident in yourself, like, absolutely, that's amazing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's a great way of saying that. Yeah, I think that's something we could all fundamentally, and that's something that astrology and human design shows you, like you said, is like, one thing astrology helped me was to be more compassionate and understanding for other people, because it's like, oh, wait, so like I'm this, and then there's all these, you know, mostly this, and there's all these other different signs, and I start to read about it, I'm like, oh, that's why such and such is like this, and that's why such and such is like that. And then when you understand the fundamental needs, you're like, wow, I was really interpreting that really from a very wild perspective, because they, you know, they meant the best, or, you know, whatever the situation was. It just helps you understand life more and other people more. That's awesome. All right, so we'll conclude it here. Judith, by the way, so Judith had a little bit of a technical question about the SVG number and stuff. So Judith, if you could just message Annalena through her website, she's very happy to answer those technical
on my
things.
Instagram, it's probably, she
IG?
can reach out to me. Also, my email website is fine too. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the IG's there. All right. Well, Annalena, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being on, and we'll have more chats like this in the future. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me, and have a great